So welcome everybody. My name is Gus Nakada. I am the Director of College Success. Super excited for this webinar today on Excel. It is an introductory workshop, a webinar on Excel, but we have two special guests with us, our facilitators that will be helping us through this webinar. So we're really excited to have them here. So first we have Quyun Pham, who is a data analytics professional with over 2 decades helping businesses with their business intelligence, information technology, and data science initiatives. Currently, he's a director of data governance and data management at Sony Pictures Entertainment. And he has worked with ever-evolving databases, business intelligence, and data visualization tools. But Excel is definitely something or a tool that has maintained its utility, and it's important for him in his business community. We also have Mario Garcia, who is a business professional providing marketing strategies for both consumer and business marketing. He specializes in using data to develop insights that are used to improve the effectiveness of marketing programs. He received his marketing degree from CSUN, and he's currently the Director of Consumer Data and Insights at Sony Pictures Entertainment. He's been working with data to drive marketing strategies for 25 years across several industries, including media, health, and entertainment. And he continues to use Excel both in the business side and for his personal use. So both Quyun and Mario will be facilitating this workshop for you. Quyun and Mario, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, great. First of all, let me thank the Fulfillment Fund, Gus and Ali, for inviting Mario and myself to come lead this webinar on Introduction to Excel. I'm excited to see all your college majors in the polls, and also excited to kind of help you on your journey with learning a little bit about Excel. But first, about myself. So my name is Quyun Pham. I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a degree in Management Information Systems. Throughout my career, I've worked for a variety of different types of companies, starting with CGI, which is a consulting firm, MicroStrategy is a software company, PetSmart's a retailer, TriWest is a healthcare company, and then finally, Sony Pictures, which is an entertainment company. So I have a wide breadth of experience in different industries, but kind of doing the same thing for the different industries, and that's business and data. I'm gonna click on the slide for Mario to introduce himself.
Yeah, really quick. You already heard Gus mentioned our background and our bios, so we'll go through this really quick. I went to CSUN. Hopefully, a lot of you know that school since it's a local school. As you can see, the various brands here, they're all pretty. There are a variety of brands: healthcare, entertainment, media. So, looking forward to walking through this. So go ahead, Quyun. Let's get this rolling.
Cool. All right, the agenda for today, just going to touch on the importance of data really quickly, talk about why Excel is important as well, and then we'll go into learning Excel. And if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to type it in the chat, or if there's a pause or whatnot, feel free to go ahead and ask us the question directly. But starting with the importance of data. So I have a couple of interesting visuals here. This picture is from The Economist, from an article in 2017 mentioning that the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but it's actually data. And it kind of speaks to the advancement in technologies that man has had throughout history, starting with the Stone Age to Bronze Age, Iron Age, Steam Age, Electricity Age, Nuclear Age, and now we're kind of in the space/information age. That is evidenced by the explosion of data that's being created and collected by various platforms and companies all over. So everything from your social media posts to your emails to your texts. So data is definitely becoming a huge resource that companies collect and utilize to understand people, understand trends, and figure out how to monetize. So yeah, it's growing every minute and every day. So as of 2020, we actually had 15,000 times more data than was available in 1986. Also, as of today, we have 40 times more bytes of data than we have stars in the observable universe. So just, a little perspective to add there, that data is growing exponentially, and it's only accelerating. Let's jump into why Excel. Excel is a tool that simplifies working with numbers. It makes data tracking and manipulation super easy, and it's an invaluable business skill. For a lot of people, they use this tool actually on a daily basis, but the utility and the benefit, spans beyond just the business. You can use it at home and for personal reasons, for anything from budgeting, managing lists and project tasks like a wedding plan, or even tracking your grades. So now that we understand why Excel is important, let's go into what we're going to teach you guys today. Excel basics. So this is an introduction to Excel, and we'll kind of give you an overview of the application and talk about some of its features and functions. I'm going to go through the left column bullets, and Mario is going to go through the right column bullets. And I won't go through it here, but we'll go through each one of those on the subsequent slides. I'm going to take a quick pause here. Does anyone have any questions right now before we actually go into the learning materials? Okay, great. Let's just get on with it. So learning Excel basics. Let's start with creating a workbook. So the first thing you need to know is how to even launch this application. So you launch this application by finding the Excel icon, which looks like this. It has a little X and it's surrounded by a green box. Or you can go into your start menu and actually find Microsoft Excel and launch it from there. And then also, as part of this first task of creating a workbook, I'm going to show you how to add worksheets within the workbook. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to launch Excel, and then we'll toggle over there. So go to Excel, click on that to launch it. And you guys can follow along. If you happen to have dual screens, maybe keep our presentation and our image on one screen and then open up Excel on another. But if you're working on just one screen, then just manage or maybe reduce your windows so you can see both. So kill that. Okay. So now that you've launched Excel, so this is what the interface looks like. You see down here that it creates a sheet. So the reason why this is called a book is because you can add multiple sheets. So a book has multiple pages. You can also add multiple pages, and within each page you can write information. You call page 1. And on page 1, then you can start making a list on your wedding guests. You can click the sheet 2 and you see that it's empty. Here on sheet 2, you can say these are wedding expenses. And then within each cell, you can start making a list. So just really quickly, that's how you create a workbook. Before I move on, one important thing to do is saving. So to save your workbook, because you don't want to create all this work and lose it or have the application close on you, you just go File, Save As, specify folder location and type in a name, and you've saved your file. So now you know how to launch Excel, you know how to add worksheets, and you know how to save it. All right, let's move on to some of the math functions. So for these math functions, if you've downloaded the Excel file that Gus provided in the chat box, we've served up a workbook for you guys to open, and you can kind of work along with us as we're showing you things. But in terms of the math functions that I'm going to show you today, I'm going to go over the sum function, which is basically a way to say, hey, I want to add numbers together, and I'm going to do that in Excel. There's a count function that allows you to actually count a number of records or a number of cells or a number of values. The divide function is what you need to do to perform division in Excel. And then there's an average function, which allows you to get averages for a particular set of numbers. So let's jump over to the Excel file and do that really quickly. And I'll show you how to manage that. So in the Excel file, you'll see that in the workbook, let me minimize this. Do you want to minimize the toolbar? All right. All right, can everyone see this? So what I'm doing here is I'm copying all the values from one page and going over to this page and pasting it. All right, so here we have a data set, and the first thing that we want to do is perform a count. So how do you count the number of values or number of rows? There's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can do a quick count. So if you take your cursor and click on a cell and drag it down, and and you see that it highlights all the cells, you'll see down here in the footer of the application that it automatically gives you kind of an average of all these numbers, a count of 8. So it says there's 8 unique values, and sum. So it basically adds up all those numbers and it totals 36. So, but for the purposes of this, we want to be able to find those numbers, and maybe that you want to put those counts in a different location. So what I have here is a total number of classes. So if I wanted to count the total number of classes, what you can do here is, so the syntax, you start with an equal sign, you type in the operator count, and you put it in open parentheses. Then you just highlight the cells that you want to count, and then close it and hit enter. And you'll see here that we have a total number of classes at 8 because the formula basically counted all the rows in our data set. So if we wanted to find the total duration of class time, how do we do that? So you would use the sum function. Here is the, okay, so here's the duration column. If you wanted to total the duration of class time, so here, what this data set has are a list of your classes, who the teachers are, the start and end times for your class, and then how long each class lasts. So in this case, this math class here lasts 50 minutes. This English class lasts 50 minutes. This art class lasts only 25 minutes. So if you wanted to calculate how much time that I spend in class in a week, assuming that you attend these classes in the week, how would you do that? You can either click on this cell below and click on this automatic sum function. And you'll see that when you click on that, it brings in the sum function and automatically highlights all the values above. And if you click on enter, then it basically sums all that up and gives you a total of 355. Now, let's say that you don't want to put your total there and you want to put it over here in this nice table we're creating. You would do the same here. You type in equals, type in the sum function, and again, you start with an open parentheses. Go over to the cells that you want to add together, highlight them, close it off with a parentheses and click enter. And you'll see that it summed up all these values to 355 minutes. And if I highlight it again, you'll see that the sum is 355, and that's what we got here. The next one we're going to talk about is the average. So how do we get an average? In this case, we have, minimize that a little bit. We have some grades here and the associated number for each grade, and a B equals 3 and A equals 4, C equals 2. So how do you calculate your grade point average of 3.6 here? So what you can do is you can do it in 2 steps. You can add up all your grades here. So let's go ahead and do that with this auto sum function. So right now your grades are adding up to 26, and now you know that, so you take your 26 and then you divide it by the number of classes so you can find out what your grade point average is across your classes. So what you can do is then take your 26 number and use the slash button. So in Excel, the backward slash is the symbol for division. So if you do that and you divide it by the number of classes you have, which is 8, it gives you a grade point average of 3.25. I'm not sure what this is doing here. So of 3.25. Another way that you can do the average is if you take all your numbers and then actually use the average function. So the alternative way of finding the average is clicking equals, selecting average. Typing in your open parentheses, selecting the cells that you want to average, closing it and hitting enter, and you'll see that that you were able to get a 3.25 average for your GPA by using the average function across these. Or if you wanted to do it manually, you can first add up these scores, which gives you 26, and then use the / function to divide it by number of classes, and it gets you to the same number. I'm going to pause really quickly here. Any questions? Nope, let's move on. So going back to some manipulation functions. So I'm going to go over the proper, and what proper does is it allows you to format your text into what we call proper case or camel case, which is the first word of any sentence has a capitalized letter, and then the other words are lowercase. So we're going to go through the chimp function, which removes extraneous spaces in your text. And then we're going to go with the concat function, which shows you how to combine values within Excel. So let's jump back over to the workbook and go through that really quickly. So here's the data manipulation. So the first thing that we want to do is talk about the proper function. So in this data set here, you'll see that the teacher's first name is kind of messy. It was entered or collected and has all varying types of case. So let's say we want to clean that up and make sure that it's in proper case. You would, again, do an equal sign, type in proper, open parentheses, and then highlight the cell that you want to manipulate, close the parentheses and click enter. And you'll see that Doris is now in proper case. And if you highlight on the cell, you see that this formula is there. Now, a cool thing in Excel that you could do is now that you have the formula, you can just drag it all the way down and apply it to all the other cells. So when I did that, you'll see that we did a proper F6, which is this column. And you look at this one, it intuitively knew that you wanted to change the cell you wanted to manipulate. So now that we have the proper function, it's a good way to kind of clean up inconsistent data. Now let's talk about the concat. The concat function, it allows you to combine two fields together. So let's do that really quickly. I'm going to do equal sign, concat, parentheses, and then here's where you specify the values that you want to combine together. Excuse me for a second while I mute this. Okay. All right, so back to here. So equal signs, and then you type in the function, open parentheses, and now you need to specify which values that you want to combine together. In this case, I'm trying to do a first and last name. So I'm going to click on this cell. I'm going to click comma. So I want to combine the proper teacher's first name with the teacher's last name. Click enter. And now you'll see that her first name and last name has been combined. However, it's not really perfect because there's no space in between. So how would you introduce a space in between it? So you would go back into the formula, and if you wanted to introduce yet another space, you would just put in another comma. And then in between the two values, you want one space. So you would do that by typing in two double quotes with a space in between and click enter. Oops. Space in between. And what the double quotes is, whatever you put in the double quotes is what it's going to insert in between your cells. And then you click enter, and now you have Doris Smith concatenated together. Drag that down to apply the formula to the rest of the cells, and now you have a concatenated teacher list. The other manipulation function I'm going to show you is trim. So going over to the right side, we have some comments here about the class. And again, it's in kind of a weird format. There's hard to read. There's lots of spaces. So let's kind of clean that up. Start with the equal sign. Type in trim, and you'll notice that as I start typing in the words, the tool automatically pulls up a list with those letters, and you can either finish typing it out or you can choose that function. And it automatically puts the parentheses for you. And then now you need to specify the value that you want to trim. So I'm going to click on cell Q6 and then close it, click enter. And now all the spaces have been removed. So the trim function removes all spaces except for the single space in between words. So it's intelligent enough to do that. Again, I highlight it, I drag it down, and it'll apply the formula across all of them. So now you have a trimmed comment list. Any questions before I move on to the next section?
Yes, I have a question. So does this only work for letters, I mean, or can it work for like numbers as well? Like, for example, like scientific notation or sig figs or stuff like that. Because I deal with those mostly a lot.
Yeah, yeah. The trim. If you had, I think if you had spaces in your scientific notation, I think it wouldn't be a number because I don't think it allows spaces into it, right? But if you had numbers like this and you wanted to trim it, and there was a
Yeah. Okay.
dot, right, and you wanted to trim, then that's how it fixes it. But I think if you had a true, accurate scientific notation number, I think those numbers are all together and it doesn't have any spaces in it to begin with. So if you do have spaces, it's kind of
okay.
Does that make sense? But if you just put numbers in there and those numbers have spaces, the trim will trim down the numbers. However, keep in mind that the trim function assumes that each unique kind of sets of characters are a distinct word. And so it'll only trim any multiple spaces and leave one. If you have one in between, it'll preserve that one in between. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of like this, I love math. There's one space in between I and love, one space in between love and math. But when I trimmed it, all it did was remove all these extraneous spaces in front of it, but preserve those single spaces. Cool?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for that question. All right, now moving on to the next one. Formatting. So this is kind of fun. Excel provides a variety of formatting functions that's literally at your fingertips. Like you click a button and it fixes it for you. So it's really convenient. And anyone who's ever used Microsoft Word, kind of similar to that, but it allows you to apply it to your spreadsheet. So today we're going to go over format types, some different font settings, and some alignment settings. So jumping over to the file, going into the formatting tab. Let's minimize this a little bit so you can see. Okay. So here we are. So the first thing, I have a list of kind of action items for you if you wanted to try it yourself or follow along. The first thing I want to do is I want to center the alignment for the course number column. So you'll see here in the course number, the values are left aligned. I think it looks better if you center it. So what you do is you highlight the cell or cells that you want to align, and you go into your little shortcut bar. You see there's alignment. Here's some shortcuts here. So this means to align left. This means to center. So I'm going to click that, and you've just centered it. So it kind of puts the value in the middle of the column. It looks better. I also want to do that to duration, grade, and grade score. So let's do that. Highlight, center. I'm going to highlight both of these rows, center, and now you've accomplished task number one. The next item is change time from military to regular. So what does that mean? So in this example, you'll see that the start and end dates for your class time, the start and end times for your class are in military time, which is reported in 24 hours. So you'll see that some of these down here, it's not on a 12-hour time frame, it's on 24 hours. So what this means is basically after 12 o'clock, you would add 3.5 hours to get to 15. So this is 3:30. This is 3:30 to 4 o'clock. However, I'm not used to looking at military time. That looks weird. How do I fix that? Highlight both of these and then go into your automatic format section here. So you can choose different types of formats. Here it already has time. So let's click on time. Whoops. Clicks on time and it changes that to the regular time format for you. So it's easier to read. But here you'll notice that it shows hours, minutes, and seconds. So I don't need seconds. They're just zeros. They're distracting. What you can do is go into more number formats, and under time, you can actually specify the different types of formats that you want to see. So in this case, we don't want the format that shows hours, minutes, and seconds. Let's just show hours and minutes. Let's click this, and you'll see in the sample that it gives you an example of what the value would look like. So click on that, click OK, and now we have a much better time. The next thing I want to do is I want to bold the female friends that I have in the various classes I'm attending. How do I do that? So I'm going to go over to my friends column, find the ones that are female. So Mary's a female, I'm going to select it on her. If you want to, and I can click on that and go over to this font function, there's a big B, click on bold, and now I've bolded Mary. You can either do it individually by clicking one cell and then clicking bold at a time. If you want to do multiples, click on Brenda and then hold down the control button. And now you can skip and pick Peggy. And now that allows you to pick multiple cells without dragging. So both of those are females, bold them. So now all my female friends, I'm not sure if Eddie is a guy or a girl, but I'll assume Eddie's a guy. So Mary, Brenda, and Peggy have now been bolded. Next thing I want to do is change the text font for my male friends to red. How would I do that? So again, I'm going to click on Joey. I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm also going to click Brad, Eddie, David, and Tim, and then go over here to the font section. And there's a little drop down here that says font color. I want to change that from black. You see where it's already highlighted here. That's what's selected. I want to change that to red. And now my male friends have been formatted to red. Last one, I want to change the cell color for all my classes with a grade A to orange. So go over to K. Here are my grades. And I want to select the classes with grade A. So I'm going to highlight that whole row, click on the control key, highlight this whole row, and this one as well, and go over here and click on this button. So there's a fill color. If you click on orange, now I've highlighted the cell colors for my classes where I'm making a good grade to orange, because that just helps me focus on the positive. So, quick pause here. Any questions? Nope. All right, moving along. So a couple last ones. Let's talk about some sorting. So sorting data allows you to order your data. When it's text data, it'll sort it either ascending from A to Z or descending from Z to A. If you have numbers, ascending would be smallest to largest and descending would be largest to smallest. And you can also sort your dates and times from oldest to newest or newest to oldest. And we're going to jump over to do that in the Excel spreadsheet. So let's start with sorting first. So you'll notice in this particular data set that the course numbers, even though it goes from 8, there are 8 classes and there are 8 numbers. However, they're not sorted in order. So how would I do that? What you would do is you could either highlight this and click on data and sort. And it would prompt you to expand the collection or continue with a current selection. Now this is very important, because if you continue with just this current selection and sort it, what it does is it only sorts your numbers, but it doesn't sort the rest of the data that's associated with it. And you don't want to do that because then you would have a mix match between the actual class courses and the numbers that are associated with them. So I'm going to undo what I just did. If you click on this button up here, you undo. What we want to do is expand the selection, and then you'll notice that it selects the whole data set across so that you're considering all columns, so that when it sorts, it'll appropriately sort values across all the columns. And then what you do is you click on the field that you want to sort by. Gives you a nice drop-down list. I want to sort by course number. I want that course number to be smallest to largest, and I'll click OK. One thing to notice, so you'll notice that 8 and music are associated, and we'll want to maintain that. We'll click OK. So you'll see that it's sorted not only the course column, but all the associated columns, and we'll see that 8 and music are still together. So that is the sort function, and we just sorted by course number. Next thing we want to do is sort by grade. So the alternative to highlighting is you can actually highlight the whole data set yourself. Go to sort, click on the grade column, and we want to sort from, let's do from Z to A. Click OK. So now everything is sorted, and you'll see that it starts with C and then goes down to A. And you'll also notice that, it also re-scrambles the course number, because when you sort by this field, it considers all the values in all the fields and brings them accordingly. Now let's talk about filtering to show classes with a grade of B. An easy way to filter in Excel is if you click on a column and click on this filter button here, you'll notice that it creates all these little drop downs across each of your columns. So now that those drop downs appear, let's go to grade, click on that drop down, and it gives you a list, and it allows you to filter on what values you want to see. You can either see all of it, you can see just B and C, but in this case, we want to show only classes with a grade of B. So let's uncheck C, and now you've just filtered on only classes with a grade of B. Now, one more thing, let's say that we want to show classes with a grade of B and where my friend Tim is also in the same class as myself. So now that you've sorted on the grade, you can jump over to the friends column, sort on the friends that are left over, and say, I want to see Tim. And you'll see that for classes where you have a grade of B, you have Tim in only one of those classes. And now you've done a filtering on multiple columns. So let's say you want to get all your data back. How do you do that? You can either go back here and select all to bring all your friends back, or go back here and bring all of that back. Or the other thing you can do is just unclick the filter, and that disappears and everyone reappears again. And that is sorting and filtering. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mario. Well, before I turn it over to Mario, I know I moved relatively quickly, but does anyone have any questions before I turn it over to Mario? Nope. Okay. All right. Thanks. It's all you, Mario. I'm going to stop sharing, and you need to share your screen.
Yes, of course. Thank you. All right, guys, everyone hanging in there? Is this interesting so far?
Yep, it is.
All right, great. All right. Share my screen. There. So let's start over here. Okay, so continuing from where Quyun left off, the next topic is text to columns. These topics may not be as familiar as the ones that Quyun was going through. Hopefully the ones that Quyun went through were more familiar, and hopefully you caught a few tricks in there. Some of those things, I even learned a few things just watching. I didn't know Quyun could teach me a few things, but he did. So let's get into this one, which is called text column. Essentially what this does is when you have a set of data like we do in our sample, you're going to have cases where data is kind of compiled together. And let's kind of look at that. So using the same example that we've been using, you see here under location, we have this data that's kind of combined, building and classroom. And let's say, well, this is messing up my schedule. I have a hard time sorting by this and doing some of those things that Quyun has just showed us. So I want to separate this information here into two columns where I could, let's say building and classroom. So to do that, within the data menu, similar to what you just saw Quyun do, we're going to highlight our population here, our information, and we're going to go to this function called text to columns, which is right here under data. When you click on that, it's going to say, oh, okay, I see you've selected this data. What do you want to do with it? Well, you're going to tell, I want to separate it. In this case, I want to use a delimiter. Delimiter is essentially a character or a value that you want to use to separate the data. If you notice, there was one character here that's constantly among all the data. In this case, there's a /. There's also spaces. You can use commas. There's a lot of things. If you hit next, it's going to give you options. It's going to say, oh, do you want to use a tab, a semicolon, a comma, a space? Well, in this case, we want to do it by that /. So we're going to click on that. And in this case, it's not going to be an option. So we're going to add /. And you see it's going to kind of draw a line here demonstrating that it's going to separate them. So when it does that, it's going to say, okay, well, where do you want to put it? And you're basically telling it, put it in the next cell. So now what it did, it took these two values and separated them into the next cell. Now, if you did that and you had, let's say, grades here where the I column is, it probably would have tried to replace grade. So before you would go through something like that, you probably want to add an empty column. And one way to do that is you can right click any of these columns to highlight them. And if you click insert, it will automatically add a column, and you could do the same thing with rows, right? So that's a really simple thing to do. But if you try to do it before adding this column, like I said, it would have overwritten the grades. It would have given you a message saying, "Do you sure you want to do that?" And you probably would have said, "No, let me go back and fix that first." All right, so heading back to, any questions on that? Okay. So now we're going to get to another topic, also staying in the data menu. Data validation. This one's not very straightforward, but think of it as data entry. Whenever you have information you want to collect, let's say you're doing a survey and you want people to fill out a form, kind of like the survey we had or the panel we had earlier. If you want people to select, let's say that your major that you inputted earlier, but we didn't want you to just type in random words because then it would have been hard to try to aggregate that. So what I think Gus did, or he had there is a list of different types of categories that you can select from, and he gave you a radio button to check. Let's say we had a drop down and we want to validate and make sure you use the same value. So that's kind of the purpose of this. So let's go over to our sample. So in this case, let's say for grades, we don't want people entering grades that were letters that don't apply to an actual grade. So in this case, I created already a data validation, and by doing that, well, let's go ahead and click on this. You can see I can choose between A, B, C, D, or F, and when I click it, it'll actually enter it. But if I enter a letter that does not contain, see, it's going to give me an error. It says, no, you can't do that. That's not an allowed value. So I'm going to say, okay, I want to retry. And it's going to only let you enter the ones that belong there. So you can also enter the B if you want to. You can enter C and so forth. Now to do that, you would go to right here, this little tiny button here under data tools. You type in data validation. And in this case, you have a variety of options. In this case, we use the one called list. List just means you have a list of values you want to use. And then here you would enter the list of values. Let's say I want to now add E as an option. Or let's say incomplete, we'll add an I. That's an incomplete option or incomplete class. I didn't finish it. So I now want to add the value of I. That's now an allowed value. Okay. Any questions on that? I can do another sample. Let's say for duration. So the classes are usually between 0 minutes and 60 minutes, right? So we don't want people entering anything over 60 or over 120 or some value you want to do. So you can do data validation on this category, and you can select, in this case, a whole number. So you're saying, I don't want this value to be any less than or greater than, see, a minimum or maximum of a specific number. So here I can put, can't be less than 1 minute, and can't be greater than 60 minutes. Okay. Now, if I go over here and I enter 55, it's going to let me do it. But if I enter Would I put 62? It's gonna say, no, you can't do that. That's over 60 minutes. Pretty straightforward. Any questions? Okay. Again, this is for, when you have people collect or you're collecting information for a form or survey or something like that. All right, head back to mine. Sorry if I'm going fast. I just wanted to see if I can try to get as much as I can in the time we have remaining. So if you need me to slow down, just add a text box, say, can you please slow down or something to that effect. All right, inserting menu. Okay, this is kind of a larger one. This one's, I use this actually as a fun thing to do because this is where you can add images or comments or a variety of things. So in Excel, you have this menu called insert. You notice there's a home. This is where you have a lot of your formatting and other functions. Under insert, you have things that you can insert. Under illustrations, there's a variety of things you can do. You can enter a picture, you can enter shapes, you can enter icons. If you want to enter an icon, it's going to give you a menu of icons you can enter once it loads. So you can see, and you can even type in, an icon. Let's say you want to add in a stop sign or something like that, or stoplight. Okay, well, I'm going to do that. It's going to go ahead and add it for you. And then this is something you can drag and drop and you can size and whatever you want to do with it. You can also, going back to insert, you can insert shapes. This is one I often do if I want to add in a text box. I can then add in a box to say, everyone, I added in a text box. And this text box can be moved around as well. So we'll delete that, back to insert. Also under insert, you have other things like you can insert hyperlink, you can enter comments, you can enter types of text. These are custom text values like word art. There's symbols, all kinds of stuff. There's probably hundreds of symbols. I'm not gonna, yeah, there's a variety of characters and symbols that you can enter. Another one I wanted to show you was kind of a comment. So in this case, let's say you have some data like this and you want to enter a comment. So you see here that little purple item there at the top right corner of that cell. I've already entered a comment. And you see the comment here says, these are not my final grades. And it was dated when I did that. So if I wanted to edit, I can go in there and change it and say, hey, exclamation mark, and save it. If I want to do that in any of these other columns, I just click on it. I go to comment, and you can enter my comment and hit this little go button here. And now that comment is recorded and saved there. You can also delete or resolve any comment. Resolve means if you have an issue and somebody says, replies and said, there's no issue here, and they can hit resolve, and it basically says, okay, that comment is now resolved, it's no longer an issue. Any questions? There is graphing under insert, but we're going to cover that in the next slide. So I haven't gotten to that because that's a little bit more important. All right, we got 10 minutes, so let's see how far we can get. All right, graphing. So graphing, this one's pretty important, right? If you ever want to create any kind of visuals of data. So this is a lot of times people say, oh, they best learn with visuals. So they like to see a bar chart or a line chart, a pie chart, right? A variety of charts out there that can show you data in a visual form. So that's what the graphing is all about. So let's go back to our sample, go into graphing. So one cool thing of that Excel offers is not only you can see there's these little icons here, or you would think this is a bar chart, here's a line chart, here's a pie chart. It also has this function called recommended charts. A lot of times what you can do is you can start there. You can say, well, I want to graph my grade scores, and I also have a weight in which I want to have against these classes. For example, if I say my math class is, my grade currently is a B, or a value of 3, but the college weight is a 4, and let's say that the scale is 1 to 4, 4 being that's the most important class for college, and let's say 1 is phys ed. College doesn't really care if you were an athlete to a certain extent, right? Maybe they do, there is value there, but for as far as your major, it may not be important. Therefore, it has a lower weight. So if sorry?
Why are you hating on athletes, bro?
I was an athlete, so leave me alone. All right, so we go ahead and let's try to, sorry for the interruption, folks. Let's move on to try to graph this. So let's say I want to graph that. I go ahead and hit recommended charts. It's going to say, okay, well, here's different options that could work when you have two columns like that. One thing I'm going to say that's important to remember that, and you probably remember this either in high school or in college, you have your two axes. You have an x-axis and a y-axis. So whenever you want to do a chart, you want to make sure that your x-axis is on the left and your y-axis is on the right. Because if you reverse these, your chart is going to be reversed. And a lot of times it's going to look awkward, or it's not going to return what you're trying to do, what you visualize in your mind. And a lot of times that may not be obvious once you start building the graph and you think it's more of the Excel is not understanding what you're trying to do. So just kind of keep that in mind. When you do that, start with your X and then your Y, and then from there you can manipulate it and it should align the way you want it to. So let's go back here again. So let's say we go with the first one, and it's going to hit OK, and it's going to give you your chart. Here, there's a lot of things you can do, right? You could see there's different styles it gives you. It says, hey, if you want to use some of these styles, these might be helpful to you. If you want to add a legend, the legend's already provided. See grade score and college weight, which is included in your data set. Let's say, oh, we don't need the legend. You know, it's kind of taking up space, or we'll say we want it back again. We don't want grid lines. We want it to look clean. We don't want data labels, or we do. You can manipulate the labels. You can put them inside end. So there's many options you can do with a variety of these things, right? And this opens up a larger formatting, which sometimes you can play around with these. It may not be obvious just by looking at the name. So sometimes trying a few things to get the look you're looking for may be helpful. You can also change the colors of your graph. There's different colors. You can see it gives you, again, different creative options. And I'm not going to get into that last one because it just starts getting really busy. On your legend, you can tell it, let's put the legend underneath because I don't like it on the side. So we put there. Is there any questions on graphs? I mean, we can spend a lot of time just on graphs, but I wanted to show you how simple it is to just insert a graph and really manipulate it from there. You can go in and change the chart type if you like. Let's say you want to do a pie chart. I don't know if this is a good option to use, but you can see it used the pie, and you can change your values if you want to. We can delete our values here, or we can add them back in, the labels, so we can add them back in. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question. So do you have to make the chart, the second chart, or can you take directly from the long chart? Like, for example, like you highlight the grade score, and then like, can you do that from there? Or do you have to make always like a second chart and label it X and Y?
I'm not really, can you say that again? I'm not sure if I'm following your question. I'm sorry.
Like, you know, the second chart, the one that's highlighted right now, like you use those values.
Yes.
But you use like the same grade score from the long table,
oh, can I do it from up here, you mean?
Yeah, and like in the chart.
Okay, that's a good question. So you're saying, can I do this and somehow highlight these other items over here? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, you can, but sometimes Excel will not understand what you're trying to do. You see, in this case, it didn't. Let's see if it did. It tried to, and it really didn't understand what you're doing. And that's probably why I separated it for that exact reason. A perfect question. Thank you for asking that. What in some cases, when you have data like this, it's not aligned or next to each other. If you try to do that, it may not understand what you're trying to do, even if you just highlight two. Sometimes it does. In this case, it did. It actually counted because I only did two. But if I try to do three, I think it didn't understand what I was trying to do. And see, it doesn't return the same thing I had in the other chart. So what you can do in those cases is you can copy and paste those values you're trying to graph. And what it wants you to do, it wants them to be aligned next to each other, like I did here, kind of that, it looks at things as an X, Y axis. So this is why it likes to have them together. And so what you can do when you create your graph, what you can do is you can always, you know, if you wanted to use this page as your visual, you can always put your graph over, or you can copy your graph into a PowerPoint or other form, and then you can, you know, use it from there. So you can always copy this and move this somewhere else And this is just the data then which it's being used for it. So yeah, that is a drawback in Excel, unfortunately. Quyun, I don't know if you know a better way to do that. Have you experienced the same problem?
No, I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, if it's not doing what you want, chances are you may have to, copy and paste it, separate it, and then graph it from there. And that's going to be the easiest thing to solve for.
All right,
Any
cool.
other questions? Okay. Well, we got 2 minutes left, Gus. I don't know if we have time to do the last one or if you wanted to kind of finish off with a message, you tell me.
Yeah, you can go ahead and just give them a quick walkthrough on VLOOKUP. I know you
Okay.
just mentioned you kind of wanted to show the importance of it. Just, what I do want to plug is really quick. I went ahead and on the chat, I sent the link for a survey. So just please make sure to complete that before this ends. One, to, like I said, to get feedback, and two, to make sure that we track your attendance, to make sure that we know that you were here today. But yeah, go ahead, Mario, take it away.
Okay, so VLOOKUP. So what the heck is VLOOKUP? This is one of the functions that that Excel has, and there's probably hundreds of functions. This one we thought would be fun to just show you. We're not going to show you how to do it or what it does essentially here. If anything, we want to show you the value of it. And I'm just going to demonstrate it so you can see why it is important and why you may want to use it someday. So in this case, we have two data sets. We have our class schedule, as we've been showing you guys. And there's also these test grades. Let's say I took a bunch of tests recently and I have a score. You see my score here. This is a new data value, but notice it's not part of my schedule. I don't even have a place to do that. So let's say I wanted to somehow bring my test score over and combine it with my class schedule. So let's say that was one of your objectives. In this case, that could be applied to many data situations in which you're in. So in this case here, I have the same data set. I have a score here, and let's say I want to bring that score over. So what I do is if I enter equals, now equals is as you guys saw earlier when Quyun was showing it, it allows you to do many things, right? If you just type in a couple letters, it gives you various options, whether you're doing count or sum or whatever. And it also has these more advanced functions, like this one is called VLOOKUP. Spell. And then basically what I need to do is I need to tell it, okay, I need a value. I'm going to start with this value. In this case is my ID, which is this number here designates everything that falls behind it. And then the next thing I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to go to my other data set. And I'm going to tell it, okay, well, I'm going to select this entire data set because that's what the next value is. It says lookup value. In that case, I use the 2. My table array is basically the entire data set in which I'm looking at. Then I hit another comma, and then it's asking me, well, what value do you want? In this case, I want the 5th column. Count numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the 5th column. This is the value I want to bring over. So I'm going to hit 5, then a comma, and then it's going to say, okay, is this true or false? True or false just means, do you want an approximate match or do you want an exact match? Well, because it's a number, I'm going to say I want an exact match. So I'm going to enter false. And if I hit enter, it's going to bring that value over from that other data set. The reason why that's important is because what I did, I just combined 2 different data sets that had a value that I wanted to combine. And of course, both data sets had to have a value that matched. So in this case, the course number was here, and on the other one, the course number was there. So those 2 matched, which allowed me to link or connect the 2 data sets. And what that returned was my ability to bring all those grades over. And if I just copy it like Quyun did, that simple function, it brings them all over. So that's basically it. Any questions with that? Well, Gus, I guess I'll let you wrap it up. Thanks so much, everyone, for having us. We hope we gave you a few tips here and there that was really helpful, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Great. So thank you, Quyun and Mario. This was so helpful, so essential. It was amazing. Thank you for all the functions and formulas you shared with everybody. Like I said, it's really useful. So students, I really hope you took a lot from this, took some good notes. We are recording this, so we're going to post this on our website as well. So if you missed something that they talked about, you can definitely come back to it and refer to it at a later time. So the last thing, please make sure to complete the survey. It should take you no longer than a couple of minutes to do so. Once again, Quyun and Mario, really appreciate you coming out here and doing this for us. I know you put a lot of work in the presentation and everything, and it really shows. So thank you so much for that. Like I said, we really do appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, and the last thing, Gus, I forgot to mention was other resources. You have LinkedIn, YouTube's a great resource for videos of people doing anything you can imagine in Excel. And Microsoft support also has videos that you can look at step by step on any of these things. So on top of what we showed you, if you want to go a little deeper and understand it better, please look up one of these sources and you can go at your own pace.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about how YouTube has everything on there. If there's a formula that you can think of, someone on YouTube already created it. So go on there and learn, continue to learn, because Excel, no matter what job you get into, it is going to be 100% useful. But yeah, once again, Quyun and Mario, thank you so much. Students, thank you so much. Have yourself a great rest of your evening. Take care.